we are going to spend a little bit of time today talking about the top 5 reasons why you might want to get a smartphone. Before we jump into it, though, I'm curious, for those in the audience today, give me a clap, because I don't want you to raise your hand, otherwise, as somebody who's totally blind, I'd really have no idea that your hand's up. Give me a clap, though. How many people in the audience today have a smartphone, either an iPhone or an Android phone? Okay.
Oh, wow. I'd be interested who's got what.
Well, yeah, sure, okay. How about those? Okay, let's do this then real quick. Who has an iPhone? Give me a clap on iPhone. Okay. How about an Android phone? That sounds pretty good. Okay.
Who has a phone but they don't know what it is? Anyone?
That is a good one, yeah.
That's at least one person over there.
Who currently does not have a smartphone? Give me a clap. Uh-oh.
Wow. Those people sound embarrassed as well.
A little bit. It sounded more like a golf clap. Be proud of that, though. Well, then obviously for today's conversation, the top 5 reasons to get a smartphone, most of us have one, and that's okay. So more today, what we'll be talking about then is what are some of the top 5 things you can do with your current smartphone. How can we make it easier to use? Because I'm guessing in a lot of cases you might have that smartphone because you went to the store and they said this is what you had to get, or a family member went and got a phone for you and that's what they brought home. So even though you might have one, you might not be using it to its fullest potential. So we'll also be talking about that today. I'm Corey Ballard, and I've been with Vision Forward for almost 20 years now. I've been blind myself for over 30 years, and I oversee a number of our adult vision rehabilitation programs, but then I also do assistive technology training directly with clients.
My name is Luke Scriven. I've been with Vision Forward for 4 years, and I've been working in assistive technology since 2011. Mostly working with clients, training them on how to use things like smartphones or computers or different assistive technology devices. And I see some familiar faces in the audience today, so nice to see you all here. So we're going to get started just by talking about the differences between Android phones and iPhones. And physically, they generally look pretty similar. These days, a smartphone is basically a smartphone. So you're going to have a screen, which is probably going to be somewhere between 5 and 7 inches, something around there. You'll probably have a camera on the back. The actual physical phone itself doesn't look too different, whether you have an iPhone or an Android. The main difference is going to be the way that those phones operate. And even there's quite a lot of similarities between the iPhones and the Android phones, but there are also some important differences, especially when we come to talking about using them with a vision impairment, because each type of phone is going to have its own accessibility options, and so depending on what you need, you might find that an Android is better than an iPhone or vice versa. With the Android, one of the big benefits is the price range. You can go to a store and pick up an Android phone for $100, let's say. But then you're going to come to Vision Forward and you're going to come to me and you're going to say, I bought this Android phone for $100 and now I need to see what it can do. And I'm going to look at it and I'm going to say, well, it can't do very much, because that's what you get, what you pay for with these phones, okay? So with the Android, although you do have a wider range of prices, you could buy one for $100, you could buy one for $1,000. If you want to have all of those accessibility features and be able to use it to its fullest extent, you do really need to make sure you are getting one of the more high-end phones. So do bear that in mind. The price range is a little bit deceiving. One other thing with Android, which is nice, is that it's more of an open operating system. What this means is we can do things to it that we can't do on Apple phones. Apple phones, they tend to be a little bit more locked down, and they do have a number of great features for people with vision loss, but with Android, there are some things that we can do that we can't on Apple. We'll take a look at one of those things just after this slide. And the final thing with Android is, in terms of performance, If you buy a cheap Android phone, it's probably not going to work very well. Things will take a long time to load. It might break at any time. Honestly, like these cheap Android phones, they really are kind of like ticking time bombs in a lot of ways. And if you have one and it's working well for you, then great. But in general, I would try to avoid the cheaper ones. Now with the iPhone, Corey and I are both iPhone users, so we are a little bit biased with this, but we do find that they're generally a little bit more reliable in terms of accessibility because you know exactly what features you are going to get. And so when you buy an iPhone, you can feel confident in what it's going to be able to do for you. However, with that becomes a more expensive price. In general, iPhones are going to be more expensive than Android phones. Now, there is a range of iPhones. Any idea, Corey, how much the cheapest one is at the moment?
Yeah, I think the cheapest one now is the iPhone SE, the 2023 version or 2022 version, and I believe it's in the $550, $600 range. All the way up to over $1,300 for their most expensive.
Right, yeah. So, I mean, even on the cheapest end, it's still not super cheap to get an iPhone. However, like I say, you do have that peace of mind knowing exactly what you're going to get. So that's one of the things that Corey and I like because from an accessibility point of view, if somebody comes in with an iPhone, we know exactly what features we're going to be able to show to them and what it can do, which is nice. And the other thing with the iPhones is the performance tends to be good. So they tend to do what you want them to do when you want them to do it. They generally perform nicely. And again, if you have a vision impairment and your phone isn't doing what you're expecting it to do, that can then cause a problem because you can't necessarily see the screen to figure out what's going on. So the more reliable and straightforward the phone operates, then the better it's probably going to be for you, especially if you're a little more tech shy, a little less confident.
You know, so being Android, being more open, it's nice. We can do more customization to it. But that also then inherently makes it more complicated to use at times, where an iPhone, although it's more locked down and there's less opportunity for customization, iPhones tend to just work a little bit better. So when it comes down to it and you're trying to decide, hey, should I go with an iPhone or an Android phone, what it really kind of comes down to is cost, and also comes down to do you just want a phone that works and you just kind of confident that when you pull it out of your pocket it's going to work and it's predictable? If so, then an iPhone's probably a better route for you. Or if you're somebody that's like, hey, I really like to tinker with things, I like to customize, I enjoy doing that, then I think Android's going to be a better solution for you.
Yeah. Now, we say that Apple phones are reliable, and generally they are, but how many people here are using Siri? Anybody? Okay, so a fair few people. And how many people find that Siri works perfectly for them all the time?
How many people tend to swear at their Siri?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
That's probably a better question
yeah.
to ask.
So sadly, nothing is perfect in this world. But on this slide, I just have something which is showing one of the benefits of Android, because I don't want to be too Apple-centric. So we had said that with Android, you can be a little more customizable, and that actually goes all the way to customizing the home screen of the phone. Now, the home screen is the main screen of the phone where you access all of your apps and so on and so forth. And with Android phones, they are open to the point where we can actually download different launchers, and these launchers become your home screen. So I have one here on the left on this slide, which is called the Big Launcher. This is something we can download for free for Android phones, and it replaces that, that screen with all those little apps and difficult to see colors and so on and so forth, with this very large, easy to interact with interface where we can call, message, take a picture, look at pictures, dial somebody on an SOS, we have the time, and we have our signal strength. And so if you just want a really easy to interact with experience, you could get an Android phone, download this launcher for free, and now every time you use your phone, that is what you're interacting with. On the right side is a picture of the Apple home screen, just as a contrast. And the Apple home screen, we can't customize very much at all. And so we have all of these little apps. We have colors, which may not be very good contrast. You can actually change the colors, to be fair, but everything's a lot smaller, and there's not a lot of room for customizing. That is one of the benefits of Android. But I think pretty much for the rest of the presentation, we're going to be kind of looking mostly at Apple.
We'll be doing demonstrations and things. We will be talking about iPhone, but just remember, in most cases, it is across the board.
Yes, that's a fair point. Okay, so with all of that being said, we're going to discuss some of the built-in accessibility.
So that's really our number one, our first reason, and top 5 reasons why you potentially would want to look at a smartphone. And that's the built-in accessibility that comes with smartphones. So for anyone that was using a flip phone back in the day, you realize that there isn't much you can do with making print on the screen larger or making it talk if you are not able to see the screen. That's where smartphones have really pushed accessibility forward, especially for individuals living with vision loss because of the built-in accessibility. Now, there is a crazy amount of accessibility that's built into these devices, but we really are just going to highlight 2 main things today. First is the magnification, being able to increase and decrease the size of everything on the screen. So for anybody that might use magnification on a computer, Lauren and Dr. Hinson were talking about the zoom or the magnification feature built into Windows. The smartphone, both an iPhone and Android, have that accessibility built into that magnification. And we can change the size of how much we zoom in. We can also change what type of magnification, if it's full window or full screen where the whole screen is being magnified, or maybe it's more of a lens mode where there's kind of a floating circle that anything that's inside that circle is going to be magnified. You can actually customize and change that the way you would like it. I will say that the magnification on both Android and iPhone are very good, and for what they do, it's pretty much the same. Although where I think Android might have a little bit of an edge here is that I think the gestures needed to control magnification is a little bit easier on Android. On Android, once it's set up, it's a 1-finger triple tap of the screen to turn on or turn off magnification. Once turned on, then you're going to simply use that pinch in or pinch out gesture that you might already be familiar with to control that level of magnification. Where on iPhone, they require you to do a triple tap of 3 fingers to enable or disable magnification. And then to adjust magnification, it's a triple tap, hold, and then slide your fingers up or down in order to do it. Double, I'm sorry, I have a voiceover stuck in my head. I said triple, I meant double, thank you. Triple, it's 3-finger double tap, and then again on that double tap, you hold and then slide your fingers up to make it larger or down to make it smaller. Now there is an alternative called the Zoom controller, and we'll show a video in just a moment about that, which does make magnification and zoom much easier on the iPhone. The other opportunity for somebody like myself, where it doesn't matter how big we make the things on the screen, I can't see it, is called the screen reader. So on iPhone, it's called VoiceOver, and on Android, it's called TalkBack. What this does is it converts everything that is on the screen and converts it into audio, or what we call text-to-speech. We'll do a demonstration in a little bit. I think we'll do it after? Yeah, after the video. So I will give a demonstration of what VoiceOver sounds like so that you have a little bit of an idea. So I think we can dive in.
Yeah, I will just say quickly before, we're going to watch a video about magnification on the iPhone, but just before we do that, even if you can magnify it on your phone screen and see things, it can still be a bit of a pain because the phone screen is so small that when we zoom in, now we hardly fit anything on the screen. So it can be a pain. So it might be worth considering to use a screen reader like Corey is going to be demonstrating to access your phone, even if you can see with magnification magnification. Maybe you could use both tools depending on what it is that you're doing.
And I think that's a great point. Lauren talked about combination, right? Using high contrast font and some, mixing them together. And a lot of times individuals can mix and match here and use magnification for some quick reading tasks, or if you're doing a little bit more in-depth reading of an email or whatever it might be, then you can fall back on your screen reader to read that back to you.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to watch this video now. So Corey and I are going to relax for a second, and we're going to let ourselves from the video talk to you instead. So
our past selves
our past
talk
selves,
to our
exactly,
futures.
Yeah. So let's see if we can get this video going. It's going to be showing on the projector screen, which is over the right side of the room here instead. Let's take a look at that. We're going to go into the settings menu here. And we're going to go to our Zoom menu within accessibility. And we'll find this option called Zoom Controller. We're going to go ahead and turn that on. A couple of things worthwhile looking at first in here. At the bottom, we have an option for color and idle opacity. Color lets us change the color of the Zoom controller. And the Zoom controller is a circle which will be on your screen all the time, which allows you to do various things. Now I have mine set to red because I think that's easy to see. There are a number of options: white, blue, red, green, yellow, orange, and so you can choose whichever color is best for you to see. And idle opacity sets how see-through the controller goes when you're not using it. And so I have that set to 100%, which means that the controller will never go see-through. But you can set it to various percentages so that when you're not using it, you can kind of see through it and see what's behind it. So you may want to mess around with that. By default, I think it's normally set to 50%. I prefer to set it to 100% so it never goes see-through. So the Zoom controller is this circular icon on my screen, and I can drag it around by by putting my finger on it and just moving it, just like with an app or anything like that you're dragging around. And you can just leave it anywhere on your screen, anywhere that's convenient for you. Now what we can do with this controller is actually a few different things. We can use it to zoom in and zoom out rather than using that 3-finger gesture, which we looked at before. We can also use it to have text read aloud to us. And we can also use it to invert colors and things like that. Let me just turn on an option here. Now, inside this menu, we actually have options to dictate how it works. So we can say what a single tap should do, what a double tap should do, what a triple tap should do. And so we can kind of set it up how we like it. So at the moment, I've got it set to single tap, speak on touch, double tap, zoom in and out, and triple tap, show the menu. Let's take a look at some of these things. I'm going to go back out to my home screen here. So the single tap was speak on touch. Now this is a really neat feature that I looked at in another video. And let me just make sure my volume is turned up a bit here. So we can tap on the controller once. And now anything we tap on will be read aloud to us. So for example, if I tap on an app on the home screen,
books,
and it was read aloud to us. This will work for any text. So it could be a text message, it could be an email, various things like that, text on a web page. So a really powerful and easy way to have text read aloud to you. And if you're interested in finding out more about that, you can check out my previous video about that. Now let's do the double tap. 1, 2. And we zoomed in. And that was exactly the same as using that 3-finger double tap. But this is just 1 finger, so it's easier. But you do have to tap on the controller, so you've got to be able to see where the controller is. Double tap again. We'll zoom out. Let's zoom in again. Now the other cool thing about this is when we zoom in with the controller, we can use the controller as kind of a joystick. So rather than using 3 fingers and panning around on the screen, which can be difficult, and also when you're doing that, your fingers cover the screen, which makes it difficult to see what you're looking for. When we have the controller turned on, we can use it like a joystick. So we put our finger on it, and then we move our finger to the left or down or up or right, and it will pan around the screen. And we're just using 1 finger to do this rather than the 3 fingers. And so I think this is a very nice way to pan around, as long as you can see where the controller is, that is, and get your finger on it. So that's all very nice. To zoom out again, double tap with 1 finger on the controller, and we've gone ahead and zoomed out. So yeah, a nice easy way to zoom in and pan around, I think. Let's check out the triple tap now. So we're going to open the menu with a triple tap on the controller, 1, 2, 3, and here we have a menu now. The top option is zoom in. We already have that set to double tap, but we could do it here in the menu as well. And if we do, then that will change to zoom out, and then we can zoom out using that as well. We can select to choose region. That will be whether we want our full screen zoom or our window zoom. So we can very quickly change between those at any time, which is nice. We can also choose a filter, so we could invert the colors, for example. And now everything on my phone is inverted. This works particularly well with areas of black and white because those will be inverted, so white will become black, black will become white, which can be useful in some circumstances. Let's put that to no. We can also choose to hide the controller. And finally, at the bottom here, we have a slider that we can use to adjust the magnification level. And so that's definitely very useful. That allows us to change the magnification level without having to use that difficult 3-finger double tap and hold and slide and all of that kind of business that we looked at to begin with. Now, if you can do that gesture, then great, but if you can't, this way of doing things with a controller here is extremely helpful.
So the zoom controller is quite powerful on an iPhone, and it really makes the magnification or the zoom feature much easier to use. But as Luke mentioned in the video, the most important thing is that you do need to be able to see that zoom controller in order to utilize it, although you do have some options in the settings there to make that zoom controller a little bit easier to see.
Yes, on Android we can do similar things to what we saw there, but they're done a little bit differently. But Android also has a kind of speak feature where you can have it read aloud the contents of the screen. That's not using the screen reader, which Corey is going to be demonstrating. It's actually a different thing that's designed for people with low vision instead of people who are blind. And then you can also magnify on Android. Again, it's a little bit different how you do it, but it's the same basic idea.
Sorry,
I was just going to say, Corey, I think you're going to demonstrate voiceover.
Yeah. For an individual like myself where magnification doesn't help, then what are my opportunities? What's the way I'm going to use the phone? And what I'm going to use is something called a screen reader. Now, when you go home today and you decide, hey, I want to try turning voiceover on my iPhone or turning TalkBack on my Android phone, I do give you a quick warning that when you turn on that screen reader, it does change the gestures that you use to control the phone. And one quick Google will show you very, very many sighted people who accidentally turn that feature on, because you'll see tons of posts saying, how do I turn my phone off from talking? It won't stop talking. So just be aware if you go home tonight and want to try it out, that it is going to change the way you use the phone just a little bit. So I use VoiceOver on my iPhone every day in order to be able to use most of the features on my iPhone. The way it's going to work, for those that are familiar with a smartphone, basically you take one finger and you touch the screen, and whatever you tap or touch will then be activated and open up. For somebody who doesn't have enough vision to see the screen, that's not going to help us at all, because now we don't know what we're opening. So instead, what the screen reader does is when we touch the screen with something called Explore by Touch, one finger touching the screen, whatever our finger touches or slides over will be spoken out loud. So for example, if I unlock my iPhone here and just go to my home screen.
10:41 a.m. Messages.
Okay. I've got just my home screen here, and for those that are familiar, there's a grid of applications, and again, you would just typically touch one of those to open up. But now that I have VoiceOver running, when I touch the screen...
App Store. Messages. Jimmy John's. YouTube.
Jimmy John's. Anybody hungry? We could order something really quick. As I slide my finger around, it's reading out what those apps are. And so that's then going to allow me to know what I have selected or highlighted to then decide if that's something I want to open up. So for example, I am hungry, so I do want to go open up the Jimmy John's app. So I'm going to touch it first.
App Store. Jimmy John's.
There we go. Now, in order to activate something, I'm going to take one finger and double tap the screen. One thing to remember is I can do that one finger double tap anywhere on the screen. I do not need to do it on the app itself, because whatever was spoken last by your screen reader is what is currently selected or in focus. So when we do that one finger double tap, it's going to then go ahead and activate that. One thing I notice sometimes with individuals who have a little bit of vision still and they're trying to use a screen reader, they may have enough vision to sort of see the icon or the app that they want, and they'll just go and double tap on it right away. But remember, that's only going to activate whatever was last spoken. So you've always got to touch it first to have it spoken out loud, then do that double tap to go ahead and activate it. So because I touched Jimmy John's, now we'll go ahead and just tap the screen twice quickly. Tap, tap.
Jimmy John's, BTN dialog cancel.
And it went ahead and opened up that app for us.
Jimmy John's.
So there is one last way that you can navigate your phone besides Explore by Touch, and that's called the flick or swipe right gesture. When we swipe right or flick right, it's almost like we're flicking a little piece of dust off of the screen. So you don't want your finger to touch the screen and then slide to the right, because when we make that initial touch, it thinks we're just touching the screen. You want your finger to be hitting the screen as it's swiping or flicking to the right or to the left. So that swipe right gesture moves us from top to bottom, left to right, and then the swipe left or flick left gesture is going to move us in reverse. And that's just going to move from option to option on the screen. And what's great about that method is it doesn't matter then where things are located on the screen. We can just simply swipe or flick through each of the options and just go across the entire screen. Where with Explore by Touch, you have to know where things are on the screen to kind of touch and move around. And that can be very difficult to move and touch every inch of the screen. And so there are those two ways to do that navigation, and it's really suggested to use a combination of both methods as you're navigating around your screen. Now that was just quickly 3 different gestures: the touch, the flick, and the double tap. But there are probably 30 to 40 more gestures that you use on both iPhone and Android to control your phone. We're not diving in those today, but more wanted to demonstrate how somebody with little to no usable vision can still use a smartphone with using a screen reader.
All right, thank you, Corey. So now we are on to the second top 5 reasons why we should get a smartphone, and this is the voice assistant. I would like anybody to clap who talks to their phone to do various things like sending messages and make calls. Okay, good. How many people, I'd like a clap for this as well, exclusively talk to their phone and don't use the touch screen at all to do anything? Nobody? Okay, I'm surprised. Okay. So people are using a combination of touchscreen and the voice, and I think that's definitely the best way to do it. Talking to our phone is a really big benefit because we don't have to look at the screen in order to interact with it. And obviously, when it comes to vision impairment, then that's going to be really beneficial. So on the iPhone, we have Siri, who we already discussed, doesn't always do what we want her to do, but she's generally pretty reliable. And on the Android, we have the Google Assistant or Bixby as well. And again, doesn't always do what we tell her to do, but generally is pretty reliable. I think probably everybody has had the experience where they've dictated a text message and what comes out is nothing like what you were trying to say. Yeah, so this happens to us all. You know, the technology isn't perfect. But there are a number of things that we can do, and oftentimes people are using some of them but don't realize there are other things that they can do as well. So we can make phone calls, we can send text messages, we can ask the phone to read our text messages to us. We can manage our calendar, including adding appointments to it, checking what's on the calendar, editing appointments, deleting appointments, all of those things. We can make lists. We can ask the phone to read us information about general knowledge, topics. We can send emails. We can ask the phone to play videos on YouTube. We can ask the phone to play music. There are all sorts of things that you can do with your voice. And the best way to find out what your phone can do is just try and ask it. And for the most part, it will understand the question, and if it can do it, it will do it. Now, I say for the most part, because some things are a little specific in how you have to say them. But for the most part, you can actually say things in multiple different ways, and the phone will understand, and if it can do it, then it will. So, Corey.
Yeah, I'm gonna let's test this out.
Let's give it a
I'm
try.
gonna send you a text
Page 113.
message.
Okay.
And I'm gonna use Siri to do it.
Okay.
And so what I'm gonna do is launch Siri by holding down my side button. Text Luke Scriven.
What do you want to say to Luke?
I think you're doing a very good job today. People seem to be smiling, although I'm blind and can't see them.
It says, I think you're doing a very good job today. People seem to be smiling, although I'm blind and can't see them. Send it?
Yes.
Done.
So I was able to use the phone there to use Siri, and the only time I had to physically hold down that button was just that initial question. And then after that, whenever Siri would ask follow-up questions, I didn't have to hold down the button. It would automatically trigger Siri. You can also do it hands-free by setting it up in the settings where you can say, hey Siri, or just Siri by itself now in iOS 17, and then you don't have to touch the phone at all. And there are benefits, and there's pros and cons to doing it that way. I won't dive into them today, but both ways will allow us to get Siri going.
Okay, Corey.
Did you get the message?
I did. I'm going to send you a reply.
Okay, good.
Which I have just done. And would you like to read it for the
Well,
audience?
I would, and I just realized I think my phone's on Do Not Disturb.
It is.
And you might not get it, but I did put you in my favorites. Let's see if it'll come through.
Messages.
Nope, it didn't. Okay, let's turn off Do Not Disturb, and there's going to be a flood of messages. Turn off Do Not Disturb. So you can see with
Okay.
Siri, we
Do Not
can
Disturb is
also
now
use Siri to change settings on our phone. Turn Bluetooth on and off, Do Not Disturb on and off. You can even turn VoiceOver on and off by using Siri. So let's see if we got
Messages. 10 unread
Oh,
messages.
10 messages
Wow.
came in.
You're
All
a
right.
popular guy.
That's not good. I'm a little nervous what that
Yeah,
means.
right.
All right. So in this case, you could typically say, read my messages. Now, I don't want to do that now because there's 10 of them. So instead, what I can do is, because I know Luke sent me one, I can be more specific and say, read my last text from Luke. And that way it's going to read just his specific text instead of all the other ones I got in that I'm not 100% or work safe. So we want to be careful here. So, all right, let's try this out. Read my last text from Luke Scriven.
You have recent messages from Luke. Luke said, I wish I could say, you were also doing a good job, Corey. Would you like to reply?
Yes, I would.
It says, I would. Send it?
Cancel.
I won't send it.
Now, what I could have said, I said yes, I would, and so it heard yes, and then took the I would and put that in. I could have said edit instead. I said cancel, which stopped the whole process. I could have also said edit, and then it would have allowed me to redo the message that I was going to send back. I'm a firm believer in taking a deep breath when you're angry at somebody and not answering right away. So maybe we'll respond to his text a little bit later. All right. I want to quickly show how to use Siri with a calendar too, because I think for a lot of individuals, keeping your appointments straight can be difficult, especially if you have a hard time seeing the calendar. But having a phone in your pocket with you and adding appointments and being able to move them are really quick. So I think Luke deserves to take me to dinner tomorrow at a steakhouse.
To Jimmy John's.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So let's add it tomorrow for 6 p.m. Now, there's a number of ways you can do this. I'm going to demonstrate the way I tend to like to do it. Add an appointment for tomorrow at 6 p.m. titled, Luke will be buying me an expensive dinner.
There's nothing scheduled for 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. tomorrow.
Let's see here. Let's try that again. Add an appointment tomorrow at 6 p.m. titled, Luke will buy me an expensive dinner.
Luke will buy me an expensive dinner is scheduled for 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. tomorrow. It's on your Ballard Calendar 07@gmail.com calendar.
All right. So now, just by saying one quick statement, I was able to get that on the calendar. And now let's say Luke decides, you know what, we can't do it at 6, we need to do it at 7 o'clock instead. I can again use my voice assistant to change that. Change my 6 o'clock appointment tomorrow to 7 p.m.
You already have Amelia's swim meet at 7:30 a.m.
No, not
Should I
a.m.
schedule it anyway?
No. Why did it think 7?
I have no
Let's
idea.
try that
Change it to a
again.
different-
Change my 6 p.m. appointment tomorrow to 7 p.m. There we go.
When should I schedule it for?
7 p.m.
All right, do you remember that example where it doesn't do exactly what we want it to do? Here's a fun one. So let's try, you know what, we don't need to go through it, but it typically, if sometimes you'll just have to reword things a little bit. I found sometimes if you repeat the exact same thing the second time, it works. Sometimes you got to change the way you say something, even though you might have said it in the past. For whatever reason, it just doesn't want to listen to us. But you can edit your appointment, and then you can also delete the appointment as well by just saying, delete my appointment on Saturday at 6 p.m. Or delete my appointment, Luke buying me an expensive dinner.
I think you should delete it.
No, I'm leaving it on.
Oh, okay.
Once it's on the calendar, it's got to be there. Last, you can ask your assistant when if you have anything going on. So you can say, do I have any appointments today? Do I have any appointments tomorrow? Do I have any appointments on February 3rd? So that's really nice too. So if you're at a doctor's appointment and they say, hey, we have an opening on October 29th, you can simply ask quickly, do I have any appointments? And then add it to your calendar right away while you're still standing there at reception.
All right, so let's move on to the next.
Number
We only have 20 minutes left.
That's how we do it.
We're halfway through, so we need to speed up a little bit here. So the reason number 3 that you should get a smartphone is because of all of the different apps. Now these, we're talking about general purpose apps at the moment, apps which might come loaded on the phone or apps which you can download from your phone's app store. And there are all sorts of different useful apps which you might want to use. Now, of course, you do need to learn how to use those apps, and so there may be some training involved there. But you can do lots of cool things with your phone. You can get directions using a GPS app. That could be driving directions. It could also be walking directions. You can play games, which is always fun. There's lots of games out there. I know Stephanie in the audience here is a fan of the wood block puzzle game that I showed her. So lots of cool games which are free that you can play. You can get the news on your phone. And of course, with the accessibility features of the phone that we already looked at, you could then have that news read aloud to you as well. You can get books on your phone. Those could be print books or they could be talking books. You can do shopping, which of course everybody enjoys, so why not? You can listen to music, and again, there are free ways to listen to music, and there are also paid ways. You can do emailing, so there are all sorts of different things that you can do with your phones. Now, you're probably aware already of these things, but it might be that you just haven't looked into them or you're not sure kind of where to go. And of course, we can help with training and things like that. My personal preference when it comes to learning new things is just to play around with them and see what kind of trouble I can get into. Usually the best way to do things. But yeah, that depends on how confident you are with these things.
And always starting out with something that you're motivated to use. Sometimes we'll get people that'll say, yeah, I want to teach me how to use the email. And you say, well, are you going to send email? No, not really. It's like, well, then we probably don't really need to focus. We want to focus on things you're motivated to learn and things that you will be using.
Yeah. I mean, for example, playing music on your phone is very easy. And, you know, it's, like I say, you can do it for free as well. And so that's something that a lot of people will do. You can then, once you have got the appropriate app for playing the music, then you could ask Siri or your Google Assistant to start playing the music for you as well. So, I mean, it can be very straightforward to do that type of thing and a lot of fun as well. So we would definitely encourage you to look into some of the general purpose apps which are available. And in a little bit, we're going to be talking about specific low vision apps, apps designed for people who have a vision impairment. In fact, that might be the next slide.
It is number 4.
There we go. It's going to be very close then when we talk about that. In fact, it's going to be right now that we're going to skip over to our 4th reason, and this is vision-specific apps. Corey, would you like to tell us about that?
Yeah, so, you know, we were just talking about general apps. These are kind of mainstream apps. But now we're talking about apps that have been specifically designed for people who are blind or visually impaired. And there's a lot of them out there, from what we call visual interpreter apps like Be My Eyes, where you can connect to a volunteer who can see through the back of your camera and talk to them through the microphone. So you could point your camera at a clothing and say, what is this shirt? Or at a box of food and say quickly, what is this? And it can identify, the individual can identify it for you. There's also an app that we really like to show called Seeing AI. This is a free app from Microsoft that actually does a number of different things. And I want to do a quick demonstration of a couple of its really cool features. So first we're going to use Siri to open up Seeing AI. Open Seeing AI. Thank you.
Channel. Chat. Vision
Okay.
forward.
So the first, what they call channel or feature, is called short text. And basically what this does is any text that the camera sees, it'll immediately start reading out loud. Basically, it's called OCR, or optical character recognition. This is great for quick identification of things, envelopes, food packages, whatever it might be. I'll use it sometimes on my computer if my screen reader stops talking. I'm trying to see what's up on the screen. I also have a piece of paper here that Luke handed to me. I have no idea what it is, even though I told him to go grab it. And we're going to just quickly point the camera on the back of the phone at the piece of paper. It's going to start reading text. It's not going to read it in a way that's like, oh, I want to read the entire document. It's more for identification purposes. So we're going to point it here.
Generation. Now what? Or an informal conversation about life after 8. Of macular degeneration. December 2, 2023. RCOMD.
So this is a flyer about an upcoming event at Vision Forward on December 2nd, where we will be doing an informational presentation where Dr. Hinson will actually be doing a presentation on what to do after, macular degeneration, now what. This was not a shameless plug, I promise. We just happened to grab the flyer. But you can see it started reading some of the text, but it wasn't reading it in a perfect kind of start to finish way. This app does have a document mode where we hold the camera up, the phone up above the piece of paper. It'll guide us to take the picture, and then it'll take a picture and read the entire document back to us. So it gives you both options, a short text for identification, and then a document mode to actually have that entire document read back to you. One of the other features that it has that I really like,
Channel. Short text.
we'll
Edit document.
switch it here,
Product. Person. Currency.
is a currency mode or an identification. Luke owed me $20 and he gave it to me earlier today, which was nice of him. I'm glad he paid me back. So I'm going to use the money identifier here. I have the bill he gave me, and we'll just make sure. I mean, I don't question that he gave me a 20. He's a pretty trustworthy guy.
I just realized I need to leave.
But let's just find out here. So I'm going to hold the back of the phone, the camera pointed at the bill.
$5.
Well, that must be a mistake. Let's try it again. It never makes mistakes, but I mean, let's find out.
$5.
Oh, interesting. Well,
Yeah.
we'll talk about that later. But we can quickly identify currency. Anyone who knows with low vision, you might know that our paper currency has no difference to them. It's very hard to tell what bill is what. Now, quickly and pretty accurately, we can get identification on what those bills are. The Seeing AI app also does product identification, so you can use it to scan barcodes and it'll come back with what that product is. It also does facial recognition. You can program in individuals, friends and family, take a picture of them, label them, and in the future, if you point your camera up and it sees that individual, it will go ahead and speak that person's name. It also does scene description, so you can take a picture of the room and it'll kind of describe it to you. It's not very good. It'll say looks like a large room with table and chairs, which isn't super accurate, but it's accurate, but not very useful.
Helpful,
yes,
though, yeah.
not very useful, but in the future, you could see where that could become very cool. There's color identification and also light, so it'll higher pitch noise lets you know when it sees a light source. and then when you point the camera away from light, you get a lower pitch letting you know it's dark. So that's just another example of an app specifically made for people with low vision that can really make using a smartphone much more of a benefit.
Yeah, and in Lauren and Dr. Hinson's presentation, they were talking about the expense of some of the assistive technology items. But with your phone, you already have the phone, and now you can get these free apps to put on it that actually gives it some of the capabilities of some of these expensive assistive technology devices. And so why not try it out, you know? Now, the phone is not going to be as good at doing this stuff as a dedicated device, but for the most part, the phone can do a surprisingly good job. Excuse me, Corey.
I did. Yeah. Well, he's saying you owe me $15.
Fair enough. Can we get a clap from anybody who's using their phone to magnify? Now that could either be using the camera on the back to magnify, or it could be taking a picture of things and then zooming in on the picture. Can we get a clap from anybody who's doing that at the moment?
Good.
Okay. And so it sounds like a few people are doing that, but it's something that everybody could be doing. Your phone has what is probably a high quality camera on it, and you can use that camera as a magnifier. And so there are dedicated magnifier apps. The iPhone has one built in already, and on Android you could download one for free, and it will give you the capability to use the camera as a magnifier, so you would be able to use it to zoom in on things, and then you could also change the color of things, change the brightness of things, and all those types of adaptations that could be helpful. So that's an electronic magnifier that you already own, that you have with you probably most or all of the time. Yeah. And that can be really handy. And then if you're not doing it, another thing people will often do is just take a picture of something and then zoom in on the picture to see it better. So say you're in a store and there's a price label, you could take a picture of the price label and now bring the phone up and you can zoom in on the picture in order to see that label a little bit better. Again, we're just using a tool that we already have to help us with some of those vision tasks.
Number 5.
Oh, that's the final top
reason.
reason.
Fireworks going.
We need drum rolls.
Okay.
We need all of this stuff. So the final reason that you should definitely be using a smartphone is because it really is essential these days for staying in touch with friends and family. And obviously there are a number of different ways that you can do this. I'm sure all of you are already using some of these ways. So we have phone calls and we have text messages, but we have other cool stuff too. We have video calling. If you video call with a friend or family, then obviously that's nice. They're able to see you, but you could also place a call whereby they would be able to see through your camera and assist you with different tasks. So this would be a sighted assistance thing. You could do a call where they would be able to see through your camera and you could ask them a question. It might just be something like, what color is this shirt that I'm wearing, right? Or it might be, how do I assemble this piece of furniture? That could lead to some arguments and fallouts, but you could do it. So there are all sorts of different things that you can do in terms of calling. And also communicating with people who are abroad. If you have family who are abroad, or if you have friends who are going on trips. Again, Stephanie in the audience here has a friend on a trip, or they may be back now, but they were away on a cruise. And if you want to stay in touch with them, then there are apps that allow you to communicate with people for free, wherever they are in the world, and that's using the internet. So for myself, I'm from England. My family is still in England, and so every week I call them using Facebook Messenger, which has a video call function. So I can talk to them for free in England, and they can see me, and I can see them. And so there are a number of different ways that we can keep in touch, and obviously that communication piece is really important, and that's a good reason to have a phone, and you can easily communicate for free in a number of different ways. Anything to add on that, Corey?
No, not at all.
Well, that was easy.
Yeah.
All right.
I think one of the other points here too that's important is that a lot of your family and friends are also using a smartphone. So when it comes to support, where you might have an issue and you want someone to help you, it's very nice that those individuals in your family or your circle are using the same phone potentially. So getting some of those support questions are much easier versus using a device that's specifically made for somebody who's visually impaired, and then your family or friend is like, I just can't help you. I'm not familiar with this device.
Although it has to be said, family aren't always the most patient when it comes to supporting.
Well, that's what keeps us in the work that we're in, is that we are very patient, and you come to us if your family's not being patient.
All right, so that was our top 5 reasons, but we just want to finish off this presentation by pointing out that there are alternatives if you just don't want to get a smartphone. There are some other phones on the market which are accessible to people with vision loss, and the one that we wanted to highlight specifically is called the Blind Shell Classic. Has anybody heard of the the Blind Shell Classic 2? Has anybody heard of the Blind Shell Classic? You can raise your hand if you've ever heard of it before. Okay, so just the one person there. So this is a phone that was designed for people with vision loss. Now, it is really a smartphone inside, but from the outside and the way that you interact with it, it's more like a dumb phone. It's like an older phone with a keypad that you can interact with, but it has some of that smartphone functionality which you might want. So let's just take a look at our slide here. So here are some of the features, and we're going to see a little video as well of Corey demonstrating it, but some of the features we have with the Blind Shell Classic 2, it's fully voiced. Everything is spoken aloud, so everything that you do, everything that is on the screen is spoken aloud to you, and therefore you get that auditory feedback. But it also has a large high contrast screen as well, and everything is large print, and you can also choose how large to make the menus and
Although
things.
I will say, compared to a smartphone, it's a smaller screen.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
But it is a less, there's much less on the screen though as well.
Right, so it's less visually cluttered. The whole interface is designed to be very stripped down and simple visually. It also has a voice control feature, and so you can again talk to it to get it to do things like we were talking about with the smartphone. It has that same type of functionality. But one of the cool things about it is it's not just one of these flip phones that does very basic things. It can also use apps as well, and those apps have been modified to work with the Blind Shell Classic 2, and they've been designed to make it very simple to use them. So some of the apps that we have are, for example, YouTube for watching video content and Facebook for communicating. So it has those apps, and they've been simplified to work properly with the phone. And we also have some of those low vision specific apps that we were talking about, or those vision impairment apps that we were talking about previously. So we have some services like Ira, which is a sighted assistance service. We have books that we can read, which are spoken books from the Bard service. We have the Google Lookout app, which can do what Corey was doing with the Seeing AI app in terms of reading print aloud. So all of those apps are available on the Blind Shell Classic 2 here, and we can even browse the internet as well. And all of this stuff has been simplified again so that we can do it with just a couple of buttons on the phone. So it might be a nice option if you do want something a little bit simpler and less intimidating.
It's a phone that can be as simple or as complicated as you would like it. If you really are just looking for an accessible phone with physical buttons to make and receive calls and send and receive texts, it can do it. If you want to expand and start getting into some of those apps, then you can dive into the applications menu and dive into some of those more complicated features. I have a quick demonstration video here. It's just a shot of the phone itself, and I'm just arrowing through the menu really quick. It's a very fast 10-second video, but just to give you a little idea of what the menu structure looks like and what the voice sounds like.
All right, let's give it a try. Why is it so quiet? Okay, so it sounds like our Bluetooth speaker has disconnected, so the sound is very quiet.
Yeah, might have.
Jonathan, would you mind turning the power on the Bluetooth speaker there? So
I could just redo it quick too.
That's true.
First, you're going to press the down arrow.
Can you do it in sync with the video?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so it sounds like the speaker came on, so hopefully here. Give it a second to connect. I think it makes a little noise.
It did already.
Oh, it did?
Yeah.
Okay, so hopefully this will work now. Let's give it a try.
Using the down arrow, we can navigate through the menu structure.
Call.
And again, down arrow.
Messages.
And again.
Contacts.
Now we can use the OK or send button to confirm our choice.
Contacts list.
We want to view our contacts list, so we'll hit OK or send a second time.
Paratransit.
Now use our down arrow to move through our contacts list looking for the person we want to call.
Randy. Ryan.
Hit confirm or the send button.
Dial.
And we can then hit confirm or send on dial to go ahead and place the call. So everything is presented in this very simple menu structure. You really just need to know 4 keys to move around. Up and down arrow, confirm button or the send button to make your selection, or the end and back button then to move back through back a level in the menus. So very simple to use, yet quite powerful. Great alternative for those who don't want a touch screen-based phone.
And of course, if you'd like to try the blind shell out, we do have it at Vision Forward, and so we would be happy to, show you how that works if you make an appointment. Now, there are some downsides to the blind shell. One of them is that the voice control feature isn't super reliable in my experience. It's even less reliable than it would be on a regular smartphone. So unfortunately, that does impact its usability. However, it's simple enough to use with the controls that you probably don't need to rely on the voice too much anyway. So another thing is the app choice is limited. There are a lot of good apps on there, but it's not everything. And so if you want access to all of the cool apps that are out there, you really do need to get a regular smartphone for that. And finally, and this is probably the biggest one, the network is limited to only T-Mobile. So
Except
so
just recently, Blind Shell, the company, has paired with the service where you are able to get free cell service if you are receiving, I forget what, it's the federal program where you can get free cellular service if you're on Medicare or Medicaid or on food share and things like that. And so Blind Shell they make it super easy now. You still have to purchase the phone, but you can go through the process and then get free cellular service, so no monthly charge. And that does now work with Blind Shell. And we've had a number of clients we've done it with, and it has worked out well.
And how easy is the sign-up process for that, Corey?
It was quite easy. I went through it. I've worked on it with a couple clients, and it took us it's all computer-based. It probably took us 10 minutes or less to do it. So it was pretty easy to do.
And does that phone plan include data?
Yes, it does. It's completely free. It's unlimited minutes and then data as well.
Well, that's really cool. So I guess if you want to get free phone service, then this could be a good way to go. I assume that you still have to pay for the phone, though.
You do need to pay for the phone, correct?
Okay. And I think it retails for $369.
I think the Classic 2 is in the 4 range,
maybe 400 or something. So it's not the cheapest phone in the world, but if you can then get free service for it, then obviously over the months of the free service, you're going to recoup your outlay there. So there we go. That was basically the end of our presentation. Now, we did also want to plug our YouTube channel quickly here. So for those of you who do enjoy YouTube, we do have a channel which is youtube.com/Vision Forward Tech Connect. That's youtube.com/Vision Forward Tech Connect. On the channel, we have a ton of different videos, which are mostly to do with assistive technology. It might be taking a look at a device and how it works. It might be taking a look at a phone app. It might be a tutorial on how to do things on the computer. All those sorts of things are in there. And so you can go check out those. And we also do a live show every 2 weeks that we live stream from Vision Forward. And if you go to our YouTube channel on one of the Thursdays when we have the show at 11 a.m., then you will be able to see Corey and I basically doing this. Essentially, but obviously different.
Not this exact thing over there. Our next one will be this coming Thursday. That would be October 12th at 11 a.m. Again, if you head over to youtube.com/Vision Forward Tech Connect, you'll be able to live stream and watch us do what we do.
Indeed you will. And that is it for the presentation. Yeah. So if there's any questions, then please let us know now. Okay. Thank you. Okay, I saw a couple of people over to my left here. So there's a lady in a black sweater who had a hand up there.
I have just a statement.
Oh.
To walk a thin line of Laurel and Hardy, I really
You know, you're the second person in 2 days who's asked me that question. Starting to make me a little bit paranoid. But yes, I could definitely see a resemblance. Anybody else? Lady in the top over there.
I had a question on the Zoom feature. So if I wanted to
That's right. So whatever you want to magnify needs to be open on the screen. So yeah, you could do that. Now, don't forget, you can also ask your phone to read that text message aloud to you. And so that's another method of access. And also, with the Zoom controller, which we looked at in the video, if the text is open, then you can also have the Zoom controller read that text to you as well. So there are different ways, whether you want it read aloud or magnified. But yeah, if you want to magnify, it has to be on the screen. Yes. Any other questions? There's a question from Stephanie in the back there.
Luke, as far as upgrading your phone constantly, like the new iPhones and things, the 15 has just come out and things, is it worth upgrading constantly? Are they bringing more visually impaired apps and things like that, opportunities?
Stephanie, I feel like it's almost like we must have paid you to ask that question, because the latest video for our YouTube channel is exactly about that topic.
Just came out yesterday.
Oh, it just came out,
yeah. It was talking iPhone 15, to upgrade or not to upgrade.
Yeah.
And really, and this is true not about iPhones, but it's really true about phones in general. No, it's not. In my opinion, it's very rare that it is worth upgrading year over year over year. Typically, what we recommend is, first and foremost, if your phone's doing everything you want it to do, then there's really no reason in upgrading. Second of all, every 3 years, 2, 3 years, even 4 years is absolutely fine, unless there's some new feature that really has come out that is going to be beneficial for you. So for example, this year and almost every year, it's always faster processor, better camera. That's always the two big things. The phone is faster, the camera's better. But from a low vision perspective or a blindness perspective, there's not a real big benefit to us just having a faster phone and a better camera. So unless they really release something that is just earth-shattering and is so, that's great, we usually, 3-4 years is fine for upgrading.
Agreed.
We have time for just one more question. In the front row.
There is a tech voucher for people with hearing loss that pays for smartphones. Is there not the equivalent for people with vision loss?
No, sadly there is not.
So the question was whether there's a voucher for people who have vision loss to get a cell phone.
Yeah, so unfortunately there is not.
Yeah.
So it is one of those things where you are going to end up paying out of pocket for. And now, like I say, there are cheap Android solutions, but be careful because you don't necessarily know what you're getting if you're going to go too cheap. You can also get on plans through cell phone providers whereby the phone is included in the plan, so you basically end up paying for it every month. But no, unfortunately, that is something that's going to be out of pocket.
Also keep an eye out for previously owned devices, friends, family that are upgrading. Usually everyone has someone in their family who loves to upgrade their phone all the time. Try to butter them up a little bit, and maybe you can get their older phones as well.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.